I'm Ellen McCauley at Pray It Off in Syracuse, New York. We're talking about trauma, and then life itself is traumatic. Even getting born, you're squeezing out, you cry when you're born. Even if you have a C-section, it's traumatic. Then you grow up. I don't know one person on the face of this earth that can't say something traumatic that happened to them in their lives. Sometimes I hear people's stories and I'm stunned. I'm like, wow. I find that I keep some of my stories to myself. That can be dangerous. The therapist says, tell your story over and over and over and over and over again because you desensitize it. You know, if your uncle beat you up and left you in a gutter, I'm not saying that happened to me, but if it did happen to you and you don't tell anyone and you don't discuss it with anyone and you blame yourself for being alone with someone, then how do you deal with it? Everyone, unless they grew up in Mayberry, and even Opie's mother died. I mean, come on. If you look at Mayberry, Opie's mom was gone. So he had to go to Aunt B. I mean, Aunt B was nice, but it wasn't Mom. So, see, even Opie had trauma. So the fact of the matter is, you got to start at the beginning. What ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, might we have? And you might say, Ellen, I just turned 70. Are you kidding me? My 96-year-old grandmother, right before she died, cried, saying how her parents had all these children, but they only loved each other. They would leave them alone. The oldest one would take care of the youngest one. My grandmother was crying at 96 about her adverse childhood experiences. Don't get me started on my mother, because I could bring up something right now and she could go off the deep end about adverse childhood experiences, and she's 89. We have adverse childhood experiences that we have to talk about. I've shared with this group many times about how I was name called, how I was bullied, how I was Bellin the watermelon, and it's so funny because I showed pictures on Facebook of one of my high school reunion. And one of the Pray It Offers private messaged me and said, Ellen, and I'm only telling you this because she said it. She said, Ellen, you look so beautiful. Where are those kids who called you those names? Because they wouldn't call you anything but beautiful now. Yeah. And you know, that really touched me, that she heard me. She heard my words, and I shared it with the group. But when I was younger, it hurt. And I would go home and I'd say, Mom, they're calling me fat, they're calling me this. And she'd say, they're just jealous. They're just jealous because they don't have your personality. They're just jealous because they're not smart like you. They're jealous. You just remember that. And I'm like, oh, maybe they are jealous, you know? And it did help. I told her. She helped me. Did we have physical abuse, sexual abuse? And that's one of the biggies. Do you know how many people never disclosed that they were sexually abused? And you know, we have taken a lot of heat at the Catholic Church. You talk to a lot of people and they joke about it. They take a paintbrush and they paint us all as sexual pedophiles. And I say to them, where does evil go? Evil goes where it does the most harm. Evil goes with the lonely child. Evil goes to the Boy Scout who doesn't have a dad. Evil goes where it can do the most harm. Don't paintbrush a whole institution. But getting back to sexual abuse, so many people just don't talk about it, and that can affect them. Also, mental illness, substance use. Were your parents alcoholics? Did you live in that situation? And so many people who grew up with addictive parents became addictive themselves. I didn't become an alcoholic because God helped me not. But I had to have those other addictions, food, some cigarettes, some nicotine, because I went to work every day. It's kind of hard to keep a steady job if you're drunk and getting DWIs. So when does that cycle change? And the thing is, it's probably too late. My kids, so many times I see my own behavior and my kids, I'm like, yikes, you know? But they say you do the best you can. Was I better than my parents as far as certain behaviors? Absolutely. Are they better than us? I think so. We need to take a look at our childhood and say, is there unresolved trauma? And one of the things, and I'm going to share it with you because my father did have an illness. My father was an alcoholic, and he had 3 girls, and my older sister was, had an accident at birth and was, had a brain injury, and then there was me, and then there was the baby, my sister May. And when my father would get drunk and come home, he'd go after me. Now, if you were to ask my mother to this day, or even my sister, why did Ellen always get hit? Why did Ellen always get it? They would say, because Ellen didn't know how to keep her mouth shut. That's what they would say. And I grew up thinking, that's why I got hit. I didn't know how to keep my mouth shut. It was my fault because I didn't know how to keep my mouth shut. How many of you have scenarios similar to that? It was your fault. You shouldn't have been there. So now at the age of 69, I go, wait a minute, I was a kid. How many kids know how to keep their mouth shut? So the thing is it my fault? Do you grow up thinking everything's your fault? I felt guilty last night because we were at a table and there was a screen and some of my best friend prayed offers wanted to sit with us. And there wasn't room because it would block the screen. And all the way home, I said to Bob, you don't think they're mad at me, do you? Because they couldn't sit with us. I feel really bad because they were coming towards us, and I really love them so much, and I wanted them to sit with us. I talked about it the whole way home. I don't want people to be mad at me. I don't want people to be upset with me. Does that stay with us? You bet it does. When does it end? When you recognize it. And I even stopped and said to Bob, look what I'm doing. I don't know how to keep my mouth shut. It's all my fault. Everything's my fault. We need it. I shared these things with you because there's things in your own life. Your own life. And in 1976, in January, I had my first panic attack at Lemoyne College, and no one knew what they were in 1976. No one. I thought I was having a heart attack. I grabbed my chest. I was a little chunky, but not bad. I was on the college basketball team. I mean, I played sports. And I said to my college roommate, I'm having a heart attack. So we went over to the infirmary and I didn't. And my panic attacks were a combination of hormones, and they usually happened around a PMS area, and situational trauma. And now everyone talks about panic attacks. Everyone knows what they are. But imagine having them from 1970. You know when my panic attack stopped? When I had my first kid. It must have been the out of whack hormones changed a little bit. So I had them from 76 to 81. And God helped a lot too because my prayer kicked up. Therapy helps. I've been through a lot of therapy. I've been through a lot of counseling. And I've talked through a lot of things. Did it help? Yeah. Am I cured? No. Will we ever be cured? Let's say you're here in this room and you lost one of your children. Let's say something happened, illness, whatever. Do you say, oh, I'm over it now. I'm good. There are things that happen to you that you never, ever get over. But you learn to live, you learn to cope, you need to say, I can have a life and I can have it with abundance and I can have peace and I can have love. And I don't need to have a bowl of ice cream with cashews on it to feel better. We don't need to do that. So we can pray and we can forgive. I love my father with a passion. When he wasn't drinking, he was the best. It's an illness. It's a disease. What illnesses and diseases have caused us to not be the best people that we could be? Are we in pain and we lash out? Are we misunderstood and we aren't kind ourselves? I just feel that with trauma, the only way, and the therapist was right, you got to talk about it. You got to find a trusted source. There's nothing that I can't talk to my Bobby about, and there's nothing that he can't talk to me about. And I'm telling you in this room, if you call me on a Sunday and you say to me, Ellen, I was sexually abused as a child and I've never told a soul, I will never tell a soul, not even my Bobby. I will tell no one, and you can take that to your grave. So if you need someone to talk about your trauma and let it go, I'll be there for you. We'll stop right there, Bob.